You are listening to the Pregnancy Podcast with Vanessa Merton.
Hello, thank you for tuning into the Pregnancy Podcast. In today's episode, we're talking about making sense of food cravings and aversions during pregnancy. These are very common symptoms, and it may be fun to make jokes about pickles and ice cream, but for some expecting moms, this can really be a source of stress. You may find yourself craving junk food or completely turned off by healthy foods, even if they were once a normal part of your diet. So in today's episode, I will explain why cravings and aversions happen and how they can really affect you. Learn what the research tells us and, just as importantly, what it does not. If you have ever felt curious about your cravings, frustrated by aversions, or stressed out about how this affects your diet, this episode will help you understand why it happens, what's normal, and when to get support. You can find the full article and all of the resources for this episode at pregnancypodcast.com/food cravings. Become a Pregnancy Podcast Premium member to access every single episode of the podcast and get an ad-free experience. Check out Pregnancy Podcast Premium at pregnancypodcast.com/premium. Zoller goes above and beyond in formulating their Prenatal Plus DHA. It's made with high-quality ingredients like the active form of folate, bioavailable iron, and essential nutrients like omega-3s. In the month of January 2026, save 40% off the Zoller Prenatal Plus DHA vitamin on Amazon with the code ZAPREN40. And you can always check for the current promo code at pregnancypodcast.com/vitamin. As the #1 baby monitor brand in North America, VTech is trusted by millions of families to deliver crystal clear HD video, reliable performance, strong night vision, and convenient smartphone access. The VTech Smart HD Plus is designed for flexibility and peace of mind, both at home and on the go. Check out the VTech Smart HD Plus at pregnancypodcast.com/HD plus and save 20% with the code VTPodcast20. 8 Sheep Organics makes amazing 100% clean, natural pregnancy products. From skincare to treating common symptoms like stretch marks with clinically proven ingredients, 8 Sheep Organics has you covered. Every product comes with a 100-day happiness guarantee. Try it risk-free, and if you're not 100% happy with your purchase, simply send them an email and they'll get you a refund, no questions asked. Check out 8 Sheep Organics and save 10% when you go to pregnancypodcast.com/8sheep. Food plays a very powerful role in our lives. And that's not by accident. Throughout evolution, food, and especially foods that are higher fat, more energy dense, have developed strong reward value. That's because they help us survive. Our brains are constantly integrating signals from our senses, like taste and smell, with hunger and fullness signals from the body, along with emotions, thoughts, and past experiences. We once had to hunt, gather, and eat whatever we could find or store, but now we live in an environment of abundance, and we have constant access to a wide variety of foods. With so many options, it's completely normal to crave certain foods from time to time. During pregnancy, your relationship with food becomes even more complex. Your nutrient and energy needs increase, you have to support your baby's development, and there's a lot of focus on how much weight you gain. Of course, what you eat is directly tied to that. As a result, food choices feel more important than ever. A food craving differs from hunger. It's a very strong, specific urge for a particular food. And an aversion is the opposite. It's a sudden, sometimes very intense dislike for foods that you would normally enjoy. For some expecting moms, this looks like nonstop cravings for carbohydrates, sweets, or salty snacks. You may find yourself craving strange foods like pickles and ice cream. For others, it can be a turnoff to foods like meat or things that you previously enjoyed and ate regularly. Sometimes it's not even the taste of the food that's the problem with an aversion. The smell or texture can also be enough to make it completely unappealing. If cravings or aversions steer you towards unhealthier options, that can be particularly stressful during a time when there is so much focus on being healthy. There are several key factors that can help explain why pregnancy can change your relationship with food. First, you have hormonal changes during pregnancy that can affect how you experience taste and smell. It can make foods seem stronger, different, or more intense. Many expecting moms also have a heightened sense of smell. So foods that once seemed pretty neutral or enjoyable can suddenly be overwhelming. Plus, if you are experiencing nausea or morning sickness, that can also play a role and limit your options. And as your pregnancy progresses, your food preferences may also change. One common aversion is to meat, and this can be especially concerning if you're tracking macros or you're concerned about whether you're getting enough protein. There's a few reasons why aversions to meat are common. Meat often has a stronger smell, especially when it's raw or cooking. That can be overwhelming if your sense of smell is heightened. Meat also has a distinct texture, and it can pose safety risks if it's not handled or prepared properly. If you happen to develop an aversion to meats that you once ate, chicken, beef, pork, seafood, this is usually temporary, and it often improves as your pregnancy goes on. If protein intake is a concern, there are many other ways to meet your needs, including plant-based options like legumes. If you are a vegetarian or vegan, it is absolutely possible to meet your protein requirements without including animal products. If certain foods are often recommended as healthy but sound completely unappealing to you, it's okay to skip them or to find an alternative that works for you. Junk food cravings are one of the most common sources of guilt during pregnancy. Many expecting moms notice stronger cravings for simple carbohydrates, salty snacks, sugary foods, or more processed options. These foods tend to be highly palatable, they're comforting, which makes them especially appealing during pregnancy. Wanting or eating these foods does not mean that you are failing at nutrition or harming your baby. And caving into cravings for foods that are often labeled as unhealthy doesn't undo the overall quality of your diet. Nutrition is not defined by a single food, a single meal, even a single day. And the negative impact of food guilt may actually outweigh the downside of indulging. It's also important to acknowledge the reality of eating when nausea or morning sickness limits what you can tolerate. For pregnant women that deal with morning sickness, the challenge is not to eat a perfectly balanced diet, but often it's to be able to eat at all. Simple foods like crackers, toast, or other easy-to-digest options may be the only thing that's manageable, and that's okay. You can think of this as short-term survival eating, which is very different from being concerned about your long-term nutrition. If you're going through a phase where it's difficult to eat a wide variety of foods, remember you need to be flexible, and nourishment will look different when your body is dealing with nausea. As your symptoms improve, food options will expand again. So if nausea is making eating difficult, give yourself permission to eat what you can tolerate without having rigid rules or guilt around it. There's quite a bit of research on food cravings during pregnancy. So let's walk through what the research can tell us and what we can learn about cravings and aversions, why they happen, and how they can impact your health. One study examined pregnancy cravings and explored how factors like health, lifestyle, and demographics related to cravings. About 3/4 of women in the study reported experiencing food cravings during pregnancy. And when researchers looked at what foods were most commonly craved, sweets and salty foods topped the list. There's a lot of common myths about food cravings, ranging from that they indicate a deficiency to being able to predict your baby's sex by what types of foods you crave. One research paper reviewed the most common hypotheses for why food cravings happen during pregnancy. This included hormonal changes, nutritional deficiencies, pharmacologically active ingredients in foods, and cultural and psychosocial factors. Across the literature, there is little evidence that hormones directly cause cravings. Hormonal changes may play an indirect role by altering taste and smell. That can, of course, shape your food preferences. There's also no evidence that craving results from a nutritional deficiency. An example of this incorrect hypothesis is that if you crave oranges, you need vitamin C. Researchers also debunked that people crave foods due to specific compounds that have drug-like effects. An example of this incorrect theory is that premenstrual women crave chocolate due to caffeine and theobromine, which is contained in cacao, which could theoretically help with fatigue or low mood. A major emphasis of this paper is the role of culture and psychology. The authors argue that cravings often arise from mental tension between wanting certain highly palatable foods and trying to avoid them because of guilt, rules, or expectations. In the United States, pregnancy appears to act as a socially accepted permission slip to relax food restrictions. And that, in turn, makes cravings more noticeable and easier to act on. This helps explain why cravings may feel stronger in pregnancy without pregnancy being the direct cause. The paper also clearly distinguishes typical food cravings from pica. That's a condition that involves consumption of non-food items. This is relatively rare in the United States. Overall, the authors conclude that pregnancy cravings are best understood not as a biological signal of nutritional need, but as a complex interaction between sensory changes, learned behaviors, emotional factors, and cultural beliefs about food and pregnancy. Before we explore some additional research, I'd like to thank the sponsors that have supported this episode. You can always find discounts and promo codes exclusive for Pregnancy Podcast listeners at pregnancypodcast.com/resources. It's challenging to meet your increased nutrient needs during pregnancy with your diet alone. Taking a high-quality prenatal vitamin is the easiest way to ensure that you and your baby get all of the vitamins and nutrients you need. My top recommendation is the Zoller Prenatal Plus DHA. My priority with any vitamin or supplement is always high-quality bioavailable ingredients, and Zoller formulates their vitamin on the latest scientific evidence, not outdated RDAs that can lag years behind the research. Each serving includes 300 milligrams of DHA. This is a critical nutrient for your baby's brain and eye development, and it supports mood, cognitive function, and is important for your mood postpartum. The majority of prenatal vitamins contain 0 DHA. This is one detail on a long list as to why this is my favorite prenatal vitamin. In the month of January 2026, save 40% off the Zoller Prenatal Plus DHA on Amazon with the code ZAPREN40. You can always check for the current promo code at pregnancypodcast.com/vitamin. As the #1 baby monitor brand in North America, VTech is trusted by millions of families to deliver crystal clear HD video, reliable performance, strong night vision, and convenient smartphone access. The VTech Smart HD Plus is designed for families that want flexibility and peace of mind both at home and on the go. The Smart HD Plus has a 1080 pixel HD camera with a 135-degree wide-angle lens. There's a 5.5-inch parent unit and free access to the My VTech Baby Plus mobile app so you can watch from your smartphone. You can remotely pan, tilt, and zoom. There's a multicolor nightlight, two-way talk, soothing sounds, and lullabies, plus infrared night vision and a private encrypted video connection. Check out the VTech Smart HD Plus at pregnancypodcast.com/HD Plus and save 20% with the code VTPodcast20. Let's get back to today's episode. Another study used focus groups to find out how pregnant women experience and respond to food cravings. In these focus groups, researchers asked open-ended questions. Participants consistently described cravings as urgent and very specific and as mentally demanding. They didn't describe these as just simply being hungry. Many women shared their own beliefs about why cravings happen and their reasoning for giving into them. When it came time to managing cravings, women described a range of strategies, from limiting access to certain foods to using distraction or other coping strategies to also simply accepting the craving and satisfying it. Overall, food cravings were described as a psychologically significant part of pregnancy, often tied to emotions and strong reactions rather than just a physical need for food. There's also research from animal models that can help explain what may be happening behind the scenes. In one study, researchers used a mouse model to explore whether pregnancy cravings are driven by changes in the brain's reward system rather than the nutritional needs of the fetus. Pregnant mice were more motivated to seek out sweet and highly palatable foods than non-pregnant mice, even though their overall calorie intake remained the same. These behaviors appeared during pregnancy and then resolved afterwards. Notably, the same patterns were seen in pseudo-pregnant mice. That was mice that experienced pregnancy-related hormonal changes without actually carrying an embryo. That allowed researchers to determine that cravings were not driven by fetal demand. At the brain level, pregnancy altered dopamine signaling in key reward centers. And when that signaling was blocked, the craving-like behaviors disappeared. Of course, this is an animal study, but it does support the idea that pregnancy cravings may be linked to changes in brain reward pathways rather than nutrient deficiencies. Another study adds some helpful nuance to how cravings show up during pregnancy and how women feel about them. This research compared pregnant, postpartum, and non-pregnant participants. Across all groups, sweet and salty foods were the most commonly craved. Pregnant women showed a distinct preference for foods described as cold, which was interesting. Non-pregnant women were more likely to crave warm, creamy, or thick foods. Nearly all pregnant mothers in this study reported craving comfort foods, with sweets at the top of that list, followed by non-citrus fruits and fast food. This study also discussed how comfort foods activate reward pathways in the brain, involving neurotransmitters like dopamine and serotonin. As a result, comfort foods may feel both emotionally and physiologically soothing. One observation that stood out was that feelings of guilt around comfort eating appeared to be weaker during pregnancy. We have all these cultural narratives like you're eating for two, or the idea that cravings reflect the baby's needs that can all make indulging in your cravings feel more acceptable. In some ways, being pregnant reduces the shame or guilt that often accompanies comfort eating outside of pregnancy. A lot of research looks at how food cravings relate to gestational weight gain. Weight gain gets so much attention during pregnancy because excess weight gain is one of the most common high-risk obstetric concerns. Research shows that food cravings tend to lead to increased consumptions of the foods craved. And in pregnancy, that raises important questions about how cravings, eating patterns, and weight gain all come together, and whether cravings themselves are the issue, or if the broader context around food, restriction, and expectations plays a larger role. One study specifically examined whether pregnancy food cravings translate into meaningful changes in diet or weight gain. In this study, about 39% of women reported experiencing food cravings, most commonly for sweet foods, fruit, and dairy. Women who reported cravings consumed slightly more calories overall. However, here's the important part. After they adjusted for total energy intake, there were no meaningful differences in diet quality or nutrient intake between those with cravings and those without. Most importantly, cravings were not associated with excessive gestational weight gain, changes in blood sugar control, or differences in infant outcomes. What this research shows us is that cravings may lead to a small increase in calories, but cravings alone do not drive poor nutrition or negative pregnancy outcomes. I know we've talked about a lot of different studies here. When you take a step back and you look at all of this together, there's a few big themes. Food cravings and aversions are extremely common during pregnancy, and it often centers on familiar, palatable foods. Food cravings are shaped by a combination of things: sensory changes, brain reward pathways, emotions, cultural context. The evidence does not support the idea that cravings are a reliable signal of nutritional deficiencies. Another theme is that cravings do not appear to independently drive poor diet quality, excessive weight gain, blood sugar issues, or negative outcomes for babies. And a big takeaway here, pregnancy seems to be a time when cravings become more noticeable and more acceptable. Hopefully, understanding some of this context can help take some of the pressure, fear, or guilt out of your food choices and make it easier to approach eating during pregnancy with flexibility. Let's wrap up this discussion with some practical, low-pressure ways to navigate this without adding stress, because when you're pregnant, the last thing you need is more stress. If you have aversions, focus on what you can tolerate rather than what you think you should eat. If nausea or aversions are strong, eating something is often more important than hitting a perfect nutritional target in that moment. You may also do better with smaller meals and snacks that are easier to tolerate and can help keep your energy steady rather than with large meals. If you are experiencing cravings, it is okay to indulge in them sometimes without guilt. Moderation is key, and enjoying the foods that you crave can be part of a balanced approach. Also, remember, cravings are temporary, and your overall eating pattern matters much more than a single choice, a single meal, or a single day. Most pregnancy cravings and aversions are totally normal, and they don't require any kind of medical intervention. That being said, it's important to acknowledge if you have a history of disordered eating, cravings, aversions, changes in appetite can feel especially triggering. So if you have a history of an eating disorder, please disclose that to your doctor or midwife. In addition to that, there's a few situations when it's worth bringing up cravings or aversions with your care provider. If you crave non-food items, this may be pica. It's when you consume things that are not technically food. This is not common, but if this is happening to you, please bring it up with your doctor or midwife so that they can check for any other underlying issues. It's also worth speaking up if nausea is severe and if you're struggling to keep food or fluids down. Your doctor or midwife can also help you navigate the situation in which aversions are making it difficult to meet your basic nutritional needs. In the vast majority of patients, cravings and aversions are just another temporary part of pregnancy. But if you have any questions or concerns, always bring them up with your doctor or midwife. To wrap up this episode, I want to reassure you that cravings and aversions are a normal part of pregnancy. While in the moment these can feel intense or even frustrating, they're not a sign that you're doing anything wrong. For a lot of expecting mothers, cravings and aversions are strongest in the first trimester, and then they change or ease up as your pregnancy progresses. Some aversions may linger for a while, others may completely disappear overnight. And in most cases, mothers return to their usual food preferences after pregnancy. If it can help ease any anxiety about day-to-day eating, remember, prenatal vitamins are designed to help buffer the normal ups and downs in your diet. And a high-quality prenatal vitamin can ensure that on days when your food choices are limited or a little bit less balanced, that you're still covering the nutritional basis for what you and your baby need. The goal during pregnancy is not to eat a perfect diet. The goal is just overall healthy choices across time, and that's going to look different day to day. To recap today's episode, we talked about everything related to food cravings and aversions during pregnancy. I covered why pregnancy changes your relationship with food. We talked about aversions to things like meat or healthy foods, having junk food cravings. Obviously, if you're craving something healthy like broccoli, you should absolutely indulge in it. It becomes a little more difficult when you crave unhealthy foods or you have an aversion to eating things that are healthy. I went through a lot of different studies on food cravings during pregnancies. I talked about research that dispels common myths. The most common hypothesis that you see that has been debunked by research is that you crave foods because your body is trying to correct a nutritional deficiency. As we went through research, I also talked about several studies that showed that caving into cravings during pregnancy did not ultimately result in more weight gain. So hopefully that can take a little bit of the stress out of this for you. Then I wrapped up talking about how to navigate cravings and aversions without stress and when they're worth mentioning to your doctor or midwife. I would like to thank you for tuning into the Pregnancy Podcast today. I hope that you find this episode helpful. Please share this episode if you have a friend who's pregnant. So many listeners discover the podcast through recommendations, and I always appreciate you sharing it. You can reach me at vanessa@pregnancypodcast.com. You can read the full article and see all of the resources for this episode at pregnancypodcast.com/food cravings. If you're looking for more evidence-based information or you just want an ad-free experience, check out Pregnancy Podcast Premium at pregnancypodcast.com/premium. Let me save you the time and hassle of Google searching all of this stuff, going down rabbit holes, sorting through conflicting advice. For whatever topic you're looking for information on, there is likely an episode of the Pregnancy Podcast that breaks down everything you need to know. Check out Pregnancy Podcast Premium at pregnancypodcast.com/premium.